Good afternoon and welcome to this hybrid meeting of Social Services, Housing and Community Safety Scrutiny Committee on the 25th of January 2024. I'm Councillor Helen Clark and I will be chairing this meeting. Before we move into the next agenda item, please note that this meeting will be recorded. Please can you ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting? Can members and officers who are present in the chamber please use their microphones when speaking? And when asked to raise your hand, can members who are virtually viewing this meeting raise your electronic hand? Members who are in the chamber, please raise your physical hand. For the purposes of declarations, I would like to confirm that we will scrutinise items 7, 8, 9, 10 and 15 on the Cabinet Board papers. I will move on to agenda item 2. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, we can move on then. Agenda item 3, minutes of previous meeting. You will see the minutes attached at pages 5 to 18 of your agenda pack. If you feel these minutes are an accurate record of the meeting, can I please have a proposer and a seconder? If members do not indicate to the contrary, I will take it that these minutes are approved. I'll propose.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you.
I can't see any indications.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, hospital admission and discharge processes. Do officers have anything further to add to the report?
Just to give a very brief summary, Chair, this was requested by Scrutiny. It provides members with information on hospital admission and discharge processes and the interface with adult services. Just briefly, during COVID, we established a hospital social work team to work alongside health professionals. The pressures in the system continue, so we've now expanded that team to continue to work alongside health professionals. The paper then just describes how people are admitted and discharged, and very much prescribes Welsh Government's view about the 4 national pathways, what they call discharge to assess, and recover then assess. And then finally, we talk about how we source a package of care via our brokerage team. And both Hayley Short and Sorrel Jones are with us today, who managed both the commissioning team and the hospital social work teams. So if there are any questions, Chair, happy to answer.
Thanks, Angela. Are there any questions? I've got a question. I'll ask a question. What input does the patient have into the discharge to recover then assess process?
Well, they're assigned a pathway. So once you're classed as medically fit for discharge, you're either going to come out with no care at all, you're going to come out with a package of care, you might require residential care, but all of that is with a social work assessment with the individual and the families. But they are the fundamental part of this is that it is not good to be assessing people's needs from a hospital bed. It's better done in somebody's own home.
Great, thank you very much. Has anybody else got any questions? No, thanks very much, Angela. Thank you for the report. So this report is for noting. Agenda item 5, pre-decision scrutiny. We will now move to the Cabinet agenda for pre-decision scrutiny. As previously mentioned, we've decided to scrutinise items 7, 8, 9, 10 and 15. Okay. So agenda item 7. This report is for decision. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report? It's the Director's annual report.
Yes, Chair. Can I come in just very briefly? I won't add to the report. I think it's self-explanatory. So this is my assessment of the delivery of social services within Neath Talbot for the year 22-23. So this is very much a look back on the year 22-23 rather than a reflection of our current position, which will be writing a report about for which you'll see next year. But I'm happy to take any questions on this, Chair.
I was just trying to find the page that I was going to ask you a question about. Hang on 1 second. Yeah, my question was on page 45 of the substance misuse. You've said in it that you've got testing targets. What's the testing target and what are you testing?
I can come in and answer that question. So we are testing for people that are at higher risk of bloodborne viruses like hepatitis, HIV, things like that. And then we have a target of people that come in contact with services to be able to offer them and them accept blood testing to be able to test their wider health, because obviously we need to make sure that we're looking at a person's wider health needs when coming into contact with services, especially those people that are more vulnerable to certain diseases.
Thanks, Shelley. That's really helpful. Does anybody else have any questions on the director's report? Councillor Richards.
Thank you, Chair. Andrew, on page 35, it refers to unpaid carers, the work that's been put in. See?
Could you get a bit closer to your mic, Peter? We can't really hear you very well.
Yeah, we're unpaid carers. Can you hear me now? It's the page 35 where you refer to the improvements that's been made to, you know, can you give us any idea of progress?
I can come in there if it helps, Chair. Yeah, I'll pick it up in the adult services strategy as well, but we've managed to get grant monies for 3 carers champions, if you like, within our network teams. And we've also got a series of respite provision now and money for carers. It's one of the key strategies, one of the key themes in our strategy this year is to provide more resource and more support for unpaid carers. Whilst we always quote the figure about 20,000, we think there are an awful lot more people that we simply don't know about. So we've actually invested people within the network teams to actually find these unpaid carers. And there's a series of short breaks and respite and coffee mornings, hairdressers, anything we can provide. There's a grant money it's being managed regionally, but it's come from Welsh Government specifically for, you know, we're still scratching the surface, Councillor Richards, but we realise if we don't do something about this, it's a tip of the iceberg. It's all going to end up in statutory services. So yeah, we have strengthened it quite considerably and intend doing more next year.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Do you want to come back on that, Councillor Richards, or is that okay?
No, it's fine. I'm aware of it, obviously, from my previous history, but it's always going to be a challenge, and it's getting greater day by day. You know, we tip the iceberg at the moment. So no, thank you, Angela, for those comments.
Thanks. The recommendation is listed on page 16 of the Cabinet Board Agenda Pack. Could I please have a proposer and a seconder? I'll propose.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you. Can members please indicate if they wish to abstain?
I can see no abstentions, Chair.
Okay. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to the Cabinet.
I can't see any indications to the contrary, Chair, so the recommendation is supported to Cabinet.
Thank you. Right, we'll move on to agenda item 8, Housing and Homelessness Strategic Plan. And this report is for decision. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Chair, can I come in first?
Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a very brief introduction to the next 3 items. So members will be aware that we have a pretty large strategic intent for the next 4 to 5 years. We've set that out in the budget monitoring We set that out in some detail to Cabinet scrutiny. We did give an undertaking that we would come back to this scrutiny panel and to Cabinet to give some more detail of our strategic plan. Now, clearly, some of this is less formed than others, but we're going to give you as much information as we can today. We've tried to be as transparent as possible as well for the public, but we have had to put some bits of the reports into private, but we've done that as little as possible. And so officers won't talk about the private items until we actually move into the private session, Chair, if that's okay. And if they get asked any questions about the private side of it, I think we will have to hold until we get to that point, because some of it is market sensitive information. Other than that, Chair, I'll hand over to Shelley.
Thank you. So in July 2023, I brought to this committee a draft housing and homelessness strategic plan with a request to undertake a 90-day public consultation. When I brought the draft plan back to scrutiny back in July, I provided a presentation setting out the key elements of that strategy, which included information on the key pressures facing the department, the reasons why these pressures had actually occurred, and the actions that we're going to need to take in order to ensure that homelessness is rare, brief, and unrepeated, and also that our wider communities are able to access sufficient good quality and affordable housing. The key issue I raised in that presentation was that we're seeing an unprecedented rise in people contacting the council because they're at risk of becoming homeless. And this is leading to unmanageable numbers of people requiring temporary accommodation because they haven't been able to prevent homelessness from occurring. Alongside this, we're experiencing a significant shortage of affordable housing, which means it's very hard for those at risk or experiencing homelessness to quickly find alternative accommodation. And this also means that our wider communities are struggling to obtain good quality affordable homes. And of course, the lack of affordable housing results then in wider pressures on our communities at a time when there are high costs of living and increased prevalence of poverty. As such, our strategy can't just focus on homelessness and the prevention of homelessness. It also needs to address our wider housing shortage in order to make sure that our communities are able to access the housing they need and that developments don't have unintended consequences or impacts on our community, for example, community safety and community cohesion. Back in December, I attended Cabinet Board to give a presentation outlining the impact that this high demand is having on both our communities and the council's finances. And I explained then that there was a need for us to take forward a significant and ambitious programme of activity to prevent people from becoming homeless and to make sure that those who sadly do become homeless are helped to quickly find that alternative accommodation. The reason for my presentation back in December was to put forward a business case for investing into the homelessness and strategic housing workforce, as there is a real need for us to invest in our staff in order to be able to take forward the actions we know can prevent the escalating numbers of people experiencing homelessness, and also to ensure that we have the right types of housing in line with our wider population needs. I've included the draft proposed structures as an appendix to this report. As Andrew has mentioned, this is a restricted appendix due to the fact that the relevant staff haven't yet seen the full details of my proposal, but I will now provide a high-level overview which has already been shared with staff, and then I can happily answer any specific questions you might have on the draft structure once we move to private. So what I've intended to do is to create two sections which will work very closely together in order to implement our strategy. The first section will be responsible for homelessness, and the second section will be responsible for strategic housing. The new homelessness structure looks to enhance the current housing options service that the council provides by creating 3 teams that would report to a principal officer for homelessness. The first team would be responsible for discharging our statutory homelessness duties, and within that team, there would be a renewed focus on prevention through the establishment of dedicated prevention officers. These additional officers will be able to work more intensively with those that are at risk of becoming homeless in order to prevent them from losing their current home. Alongside reducing the numbers of people that would then become homeless, these officers would also be able to reduce the caseload numbers of other housing options officers to a more manageable level, so that they are then able to provide a more enhanced service to those owed other statutory homelessness duties. The second team would deliver our temporary accommodation service. Currently, our temporary accommodation officer caseloads are extremely high, which makes it very difficult for them to provide person-centred support and also to be able to extend the number of council-operated schemes to house people that need emergency accommodation, which is then leading to high use of bed and breakfasts. So by increasing council-operated temporary accommodation, that will then result in the council being very much less reliant on bed and breakfasts. And not only would that be more financially effective for the council, but it will also provide better outcomes for those people that experience homelessness and need emergency accommodation. The third team would help those that have become homeless move into a permanent home by helping them to find new accommodation, offering them support to move into their new home, and for those people that require it, provide ongoing housing support to enable them to keep their new tenancy so that it stops them from becoming homeless again. This third team would also help to prevent homelessness by providing support to households that have been identified as being vulnerable to losing their current accommodation without help to help manage and stabilise their current situation. Alongside the homelessness section, I'm also looking to create a new strategic housing section in order to improve the range and access to affordable housing, as without the right types of accommodation, the council won't be best placed to prevent homelessness from happening and to also ensure that those who experience homelessness are quickly and appropriately rehoused. And also, it will mean that we're not able to make sure that we've got enough appropriate housing to meet Neath Talbot's wider projected housing demand. So returning back to the strategy that I present to you today, this document is a framework for the actions that the teams will need to undertake in order to reduce homelessness and increase access to affordable housing. If this strategy is endorsed, then some of the projects that my team will be working on, which will then be brought back to you for final decision to Cabinet, will include increasing the number of homes owned and operated by the council so that we're able to make sure that those most in need of social housing are able to quickly access affordable housing. Last year, we purchased 5 homes using a Welsh Government grant, and we want to expand this offer in order to be able to accommodate those people in temporary accommodation that are finding it extremely hard to find a new home. We'd also be looking at developing new types of temporary accommodation, which is managed by the council. And an example of this would be something called a triage centre, which would be able to assess a person's holistic needs, as quite often homelessness can be a result of other unmet needs or not properly managed vulnerabilities. Establishing Housing First is also something that we want to do. Housing First is a model in which a person with very, very high complex needs is given a home alongside ongoing intensive support to help that person manage and keep their tenancy. We also are looking to redesign the homelessness services that we commission. We commission a number of services, and we need to now review those services because what we needed and purchased a few years ago is very different to what we need now due to the fact that people now are requiring much more specialist support because they have far more complexities. We also are looking to redesign our emergency accommodation for those who have or are experiencing domestic abuse, to reflect the current and future needs of those that require this type of emergency accommodation. In collaboration with Children and Young People Services, we'll be also delivering a strategy to prevent youth homelessness, and that will include a review and redesign of young people's homelessness accommodation. And another thing that we will be bringing to you shortly is an exit strategy for our current use of bed and breakfasts and hotels. And this exit strategy will set out how we're going to move from our current position of being very heavily reliant on bed and breakfasts to one in which bed and breakfast use is occasional. So the consultation process for the plan has now been concluded, and we got some really, really good engagement from the 12 stakeholder events that I held. Unfortunately, we did only receive 17 questionnaire responses from the general public. However, whilst that number might have been small, the comments provided were really useful to us. The main change to this plan since the draft that I presented to you back in July is an action to recognise the important role that the third sector will play in our ability to deliver the plan's aims, and also an acknowledgement of the potential of community-led housing in meeting our housing shortage. One theme that came out very strongly through the consultation was that while stakeholders and interested parties agreed with the principles, aims and objectives of the plan, there was some concern whether the plan would indeed achieve our aims. The reason for this concern wasn't due to any identified deficiency in the plan itself, but it was more an acknowledgement of the very challenging landscape that we are needing to work within and the numerous factors that contribute to homelessness, which is outside the control of the council. But as I note in the cover report, we need to remain ambitious, and I believe endorsement of this strategy is the first step towards making the changes that will make a real positive difference to our struggling communities. And we can't damp down our ambitions just because achievement is hard. And if anything, the challenges facing our communities is very much the reason why we must remain ambitious in what we want to achieve. In terms of understanding whether our strategy is having the desired impact and is being delivered, a project group has been established now to project manage and oversee the implementation of this plan. We've already established new KPIs with this strategy in mind, and we've already been reporting on those KPIs, so that will help us to monitor the impact this strategy has. And we will also come back and report progress against the strategy to Scrutiny on a 6-monthly basis. I hope I've been able to provide an informative overview of the strategy and what we intend to do. And now I'd like to hand back to the chair for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. That was really interesting. Any questions? Councillor Richards, you indicated earlier.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Shelley. Interesting report. Very ambitious. I got a few questions. On page 80, it refers to working strategically with partners. I'm interested in the private sector because, as we're all aware, rents are going up in the private sector. Landlords are pulling out of the private sector. That's going to be a major challenge. So what's our intention and our strategy going forward with private landlords?
Thank you. So we are actually in the next week or so, we are starting to do some work there. I think in the next week or so, we're going to have our first private rental sector landlord forum, in which we are able to then, and through that mechanism, we're wanting to work with our private sector landlords to understand the challenges they're facing, to try and stimulate bringing more affordable accommodation back online. Also to be able to try and raise awareness of certain schemes that might be able to support them in providing affordable rents. So things like the leasing scheme Wales, things like that. So we are early days with that, and we do need to refine that somewhat. But the first step is really talking to these providers in the next week or so to understand what challenges they are experiencing, and then be able to start to develop dialogue and solutions to some of those challenges to try and stimulate more affordable housing in the private sector.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on that,
Yeah,
Peter?
there's a few other points I've got. You mentioned developers, Shelley, and I think there's conversations have taken place with regards to the joining up of planning and working with developers. And one of the concerns which have been raised many times is it's bang for buck when developers come in and they want to purchase a plot of land or something off the local authority. We sort of focused on what we can get for that parcel of land. Having said that, there's a commitment of 25% Welsh Government legislation with regards to building properties. And what tends to happen historically is that they put an application in for X amount of houses, planning won't accept that X amount of houses, and then it gets whittled down, and then the 25% becomes next to nothing. So that's a concern there. So I think really conversations between social services and planning need to take place with regards to that. It is a big concern of mine. And not only that, these major developers are coming in and we're having problems with them. So, you know, that discussion needs to take place at some stage. That one.
Absolutely, and that's exactly the kind of thing that action refers to, is making sure that we're more joined up, that we're thinking of communities as a whole, and we're thinking about the impact on communities and how we can make sure that developments and the things we do offer the most benefits to our communities. So that's absolutely what we need to do.
I think focusing on that again, you know, we need to be looking closely at RSLs with regards to shared ownerships. Which doesn't seem to be happening at this moment in time because the big developers are interested in profit, not in the individual. So I'll pass on that one. Can I move to another one? I mean, glad to see that you've got the active travel plan in the strategy, because there's a lot of properties in the valley areas and people are reluctant to take the opportunity to rent or take those properties on simply because of locations. So I'm glad to see it, and I hope the cabinet member takes that on board with regards to the active travel plan and moves that forward. And then finally, very ambitious, as I said from the start. Do we feel that we can afford this? You know, is the money there? Because I know that we're getting limited grants now from Welsh Government on housing. How confident are we that we can meet the needs under the present climate with what's going on?
You want to take this, Shelley? I know you've got your hand up, Councillor Llewellyn.
I didn't know
but
whether.
Would you like Shelley to answer this first? Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so with regards to the affordability, I think really the council can't afford to not do this. We can see very clearly the rising costs of homelessness on the council's finances. We are spending a significant amount of money on bed and breakfast because people are becoming homeless. And that's why behind this, there is a business case, an invest to save or invest to cost avoid, and also an income generation business case behind this, and the actions that we want to take that demonstrates that it is more cost effective to invest in the plans in the long term for the council. If we don't, the cost could very much will just continue to increase significantly. With regards to the grants, the housing support grant has been flatlined, so it hasn't been reduced. And I know there is a big commitment from Welsh Government in regards to housing and homelessness, but there are challenges and pressures, but the financial impact of us not acting outweighs those, in my view.
Thank you. Councillor Llewellyn.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll probably have some, sort of general observations when the matter comes, before us later in cabinet. But I wanted to thank Councillor Peter Richards for, very relevant questions and points there. And in relation to the relationship between social housing and developers and the use of land in different areas, I'd just like to flag up with members that there is an important seminar a week today in the morning, which is looking very much at the relationship between the housing and homelessness strategy and the needs that have been identified here, and the local development plan and the planning processes, because we know it's a challenge for all of us, isn't it? You know, in every community. But I think that will help to pick up on some of the concerns raised by Councillor Richards there about how can we engage with developers and how can we meet the needs in different across the different communities. So hopefully a large number of members will be able to attend that seminar next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Councillor Richards again.
No, I'm okay. Okay.
Okay, you just got your hand up. Councillor Oliver Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just picking up from Councillor Peter Richards' comments. We did talk about it pre-scrutiny. Looking at private developers as compared to social landlords with the way going forward, I'd be more inclined to go to more social landlords now than private developers, because with the announcement from Tata Steel, I know of several people on the new development on the beach that bought their houses on the surmise that they've got a secure job for the next 20 years. I know of two that are more or less guaranteed to be losing their job because they're on the heavy end. So just a comment.
Thanks, Oliver. Andrew?
Yes, thanks, Chair. And I just want to thank Councillor Richards for that question about affordability. I think it's exactly the right one. And I agree with Shelley that we can't afford not to do this, but it is a significant investment that we're asking from the council. And I wondered, Chair, whether Scrutiny would wish to consider how you might assure yourself and have some oversight as we move through the years that actually the work that we say that we're going to be doing is being effective and is being implemented in a timely way, given the amount of money that the council is investing in this service, and the expectations that actually it's going to start to bring costs down over years.
Thank you. I think that's a really good point. Perhaps Shelley could bring something to us with her KPIs and what have you quite shortly. Would that be in order? Just I wanted to ask as well, just quickly going on to like working together with planning, working together with other departments is obviously really important. One of the problems I think that we have in privately rented accommodation is that sometimes it's substandard, it's dangerous for people to live in, it's hazardous to their health. Is there anything, there's nothing in the plan about how we're going to, enforce letting agents and landlords into raising the quality of their properties so that people don't have to move out of them?
Yeah, the reason for that isn't because I don't think it's important, it very much is, but enforcement sits within planning and environmental health, so they have the statutory responsibilities and duties for that. So that's why I haven't added it into this plan, because that sits within another directorate. But if there's anything in particular that anyone wants me to look at and work with that directorate on, I can take that away.
Thank you. I think we'll probably have a chat and get back in touch with you about what we want. All right, thanks. No further questions? Okay, so the recommendation is listed on page 94 of the Cabinet Board Agenda Pack. Can I have a proposer and seconder? I'll propose.
Second, Chair.
Thank you. Can members please indicate if they wish to abstain?
I can see no abstentions, Chair.
Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, I will take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I can see no indications to the contrary, Chair. The recommendation is supported to Cabinet Board.
Thank you. We're going to move on to agenda item 9, Neath Talbot Children and Young People Social Care Strategic Plan. The report is for decision. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Kerry Warren, Head of Children's Services. and this plan is coming back following a period of consultation. I just wanted to introduce, we have Victoria Smith, our Principal Officer and Strategic Lead for Looked After Children, here today, along with Bethan McGillen, our Accountant, and Gemma Hargis, our Commissioning Officer, and these were the lead officers in support, along with Dr. Andrew Potts, in putting the strategy together. I guess the only thing I'd like to add is that this plan has been put together after listening to families and children and the community and our stakeholders over the last, sort of 10 years, and in particular since during and since COVID. So it's been done in collaboration, and I know that Victoria and our lead, Darren Bartley, wasn't on the call today for participation and engagement, have spent time with children and young adults, asking them, how they would, what they feel about things and how they'd like to see services for children and young people going forward. So it's been written very much with that in mind. And as the RI, responsible individual for Hillside, I've also got a real opportunity, which I take every couple of weeks, of going up to what is the only secure facility in Wales for young people, to spend time with them, to ask them about, what they would like to see, future accommodation and opportunities regarding work and apprenticeship schemes and all sorts of things that are important to youngsters. And that, has been at the heart really of this plan. So I won't say any more. We have put, as Andrew mentioned at the start of the meeting, we have put a more detailed report, which is Appendix 14, I believe, within the pack. We won't be able to answer any detailed questions because of the sensitivity around some of that. But you will see that, that cover in the areas where we're saying, well, this is the highlight, this strategy is the highlight report. How are you going to do with children's services? Well, in Appendix 14, it goes some way to show some of that detail. And the officers are here this afternoon if you wanted to ask about that, but that would need to move into private. So I'll stop there for any questions.
Thanks, Kerry. Are there any questions? No, I've got a little question. On page 163, it's saying that the consultation was promoted by the council's website, other media, staff teams and forums. Can you talk me through which forums and which media? Because I noticed we haven't had any responses, so I just wonder what you might do differently again if you have to do it again.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's why I wanted to reassure you really of what we've done in terms of talking to children and young people. So that's additional to the website. I'm going to bring Vic in because I believe the consultation was via the internet, because it wasn't it, and we've talked about for the future how we would widen that to cover other areas.
Absolutely, and demonstrate that because there's an awful lot of work that goes on. We've got a dedicated officer of me that continuously works with young people around consultation and participation. And I think what we probably need to do is collate all of that. We can collate all of that information and provide that from all the different work streams that have been undertaken over the last year. That's in addition, as you said, to the online strategy.
Okay, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just wanted to make sure that Scrutiny are very clear about what are the main pillars of this strategy. So you'll see that one of the main issues is around placement sufficiency that the strategy is trying to address. And at the moment, we are placing children in residential care because we don't have the right sort of foster care available. Now, that's not right. That's not right for the outcomes for the children, and it's certainly not good as far as the financial situation in the council is concerned. So it's really important that we manage to get that placement sufficiency properly balanced. So I wanted to make sure that Scrutiny understand that what we're talking about here is creating professional foster care positions and paying them an amount of money that allows them to concentrate on their fostering duties. It's a significant uplift from the amount that we would pay other foster carers, and I want to make sure that Scrutiny understand that that's our strategy and that they are supportive of that as we go forward, because I think it's been tried before, but I think now the conditions are ripe for us to actually make this work. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Has anybody got any questions on that? No, all happy, lovely. Okay. The recommendation is listed on page 163 of the Cabinet Board Agenda Pack. Could I please have a proposer and seconder? I'll propose.
I second, Chair. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Can members please indicate if they wish to abstain?
I can't see any abstentions, Chair.
Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I'll take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I can't see any indications to the contrary, Chair. The recommendation is supported Cabinet Board.
Lovely, thank you. Agenda item 10, Neath Talbot Adult Social Care Strategy 2023 to 2026. This report is for decision. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So again, to follow on from Shelley and Kerry, on the 13th of July last year, this committee approved a 60-day consultation. Since this time, I've provided a number of presentations on the strategic direction for adult services in Neath Talbot. And today I'll just provide an overview of some of the ambitious programme of work we are progressing, and the first of which you will hear from later in this afternoon. So first, we're looking to create a residential reablement model of care at Tremaglin, and that's twofold: to prevent people going into long-term residential care too soon in their lives, and secondly, to enable people's independence to be maximised so they can remain living in their own homes for longer. The second strategy is that we want to develop council-owned land to create a residential extra care facility in Neath Talbot. We have a significant number of adults living in high-cost external placements who we believe could be repatriated back to Neath Talbot. And similarly, we have a number of children in high-cost external placements who will be transitioning to adulthood in the coming years. And again, we need to ensure that we have the right model of accommodation and support to meet these young people's needs as they move into adulthood. And in order to achieve this, we will be creating a dedicated transformation team of social workers and legal representatives to work with these individuals and their families to achieve the best outcome for their futures. We'll also be looking to reconfigure and expand our existing bespoke day service. This is a day service for people with moderate learning disabilities, which operates Monday to Friday, 9 till 4. We are looking to move to working through evenings and weekends and accommodating up to an additional 40 individuals at that service. We will be enhancing our support for unpaid carers to ensure that carers receive regular breaks from their caring roles. We have secured the funding for 3 development officers, which will be sat within our network teams, and we'll be reaching out to those carers that we know but we don't know about as such. We're proposing to bring our family placement scheme for adults back in-house, and this is to broaden the provision of this service to a wider range of adult groups, including people with living with dementia. And finally, we are looking to create a pan-disability mobile response service to reduce the number of people sleeping in. So when I say sleeping in, we have supported living arrangements where people sleep in at that arrangement just in case people wake up at night. That is costing us in excess of £1 million, and also to avoid hospital admissions, because once an older person ends up in hospital, you're back through the process I talked about earlier, where they have to go through an assessment, and it's just a length of stay in hospital they don't need. So I said I will be bringing detailed reports on all of these strands of the strategy in the coming months. But as I said at the beginning, this is an ambitious programme of work, all of which comes with a degree of risk. However, I do believe the greater risk for adult services to do nothing. The challenges remain relentless, and we need to regain control of our market. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Angela. I've got Peter Richards on my list.
No, I covered the carer one in the earlier part of the meeting, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oliver?
Sorry about that, Chair. My mic wasn't activated. The question I had on this agenda, I'd rather leave it until we come on to, we skipped agenda 14 when I found it afterwards after we came out of the meeting. So I got a question I'd rather ask on agenda. It's a similar question, but I'd rather ask it on agenda 14. Even though we didn't list the beginning, we went to 15.
Can we just get some advice from our legal officer, Ian's on the call? So agenda item 14 is appendix 5, which relates to item 9 on the agenda. Ian, because we've already taken the recommendation, are we allowed to take questions on agenda item 14? You're on mute, sorry, Ian.
Sorry, Chair, just had a mouthful of water as well there. It'd be far better if you could squeeze it into this item if it comes within the remit, rather than going back to something you've already made a recommendation on. Technically, though, the procedure is at the absolute discretion of the Chair. So if you wanted to go backwards, you could.
My question is not really case sensitive, so it could be put out in the public. I said it's not case sensitive, and it may benefit if the public are watching this for me to mention this at this moment in time.
I think just to be safe, we might be better off going into private and you asking a question then.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay then. Right, so now we are going to go into private, yeah? I need to take the recommendation.
Just to interrupt the Chair, if you're going to go into, I may have been a bit premature, if you're going to go into a private session, you need to give the reasons for why you're going into private.
Yeah, we don't know what question Councillor Oliver Davies is going to ask, so
No.
Would it be better for him to ask the question or gives an indication of what he refers to, and then we can determine what the reason is?
Look, as I said earlier, that the procedures in the gift of the Chair. So if you've got confidence that the council is not going to reveal anything that ought to be in private, then you could hear the question and then decide whether the answer needs to be in private or not. But you'd have to give clear reasons for going into private. The default is that everything here is in public.
Okay, Councillor Davies, this is on you.
There's nothing really detrimental. There's nothing really detrimental in the question that's going to do any harm to the council.
Do you want to go? Do you want to ask it then? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking at the foster care launch in the Gwyn Hall on the 19th of February. Obviously, it's an extremely important subject because we are short of foster carers. Is it possible to do more to promote it, to get more people to attend it? Possibly using local radio, hospital radio, Wales Online. Also, we've got 4 notice boards in our ward. If literature could be a notice or something, we can put now 4 notice boards. Because I said it is important for people to engage in this.
Councillor Davies, you have made us very happy asking that question today. I can tell you. Vic Smith has been dying for someone to ask about the launch. That's all we've heard, and you're absolutely right. It is incredibly important, and I will hand you over to Vic so she can tell you about all of the ways that it is being launched. But you are right. If there are other ideas, we'd be more than willing to listen. The more ideas, the better. And you you are going to have your own, at least a pen for that question, Councillor Davis. And if we can get you a hoodie or a T-shirt, you will be the only one, because they're in demand, I can tell you. I'll hand you over to Vic.
Can
Yeah,
I just
thank you, Gary.
come in before Vicky? Because we've already voted on this, whatever you say now is just merely for information. It's not for decision. Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Yes, we've got a working group, Councillor Davis, to look at all of these things. And we're very lucky in our fostering team, we have a marketing officer as part of that team. And we're also supported by the wider council within the communication team as well. So we have a group together looking at all these sorts of things, looking at how we do promote it, because as you're right, it's really important, isn't it? And it's important we get that message far and wide. I wanted to wait until we'd had the meeting today to ensure that everything was agreed, and I will be circulating a lot of information post today. So I hope that we get to the point where you are, as Kerry have said, sick of seeing it all. So we will be promoting it. But absolutely, Councillor Davis, if I, and welcome the support of you and your colleagues, if I can send you out information, leaflets, as you've said, to put up in your ward, that would be really advantageous to us. So thank you very much for raising it.
I'd be quite happy to do the post office drop as well if we do smaller leaflets.
Wonderful. Thank you ever so much. And from today, everybody will be hearing from me, because we'll be advertising it in several different forums. So hopefully from today, then you'll see us in different forms. As you said, you've got different mechanisms, isn't it, like the radio and leaflets and etc. So thank you very much for raising it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Vic. If we can go back to agenda item 10. So the recommendation is listed on page 217 of the Cabinet Board agenda pack. I'll propose. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you. Can members please indicate if they wish to abstain?
I can see no abstentions, Chair.
Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I can't see any indications to the contrary, Chair, so the recommendation is supported to Cabinet Board.
Thank you. Right, we now move to the scrutiny agenda. Agenda item 6, committee action log. This item is for noting. Agenda item 7, forward work programme 23-24. This item is for noting unless members have anything specific to raise. No, okay. Agenda item 8 is urgent items. I have no urgent items. Agenda item 9 is access to meetings. We now need to consider the private items included in the Cabinet Board agenda. As you can see on the agenda, the private paragraph is there for everyone to read. Could I please have a proposer and a seconder to move it to private? I propose.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you. Could I please ask that any public or press in attendance now exit the meeting, and can the recording be stopped?